So 1 is yes, 2 is no. Jennifer will put the question up on the screen before you, and we will call voting open. You will make your selection. Once I note that all selections are made, I'll count to 3, close the voting, and at any time you may change your vote. And then Jennifer will change the screen again, and we will see what the results of the vote are. Our queuing system cannot be used due to our social distancing. So if you wish to speak on a matter, please raise your hand and you will be called upon in order. Please speak clearly as we are depending on the microphone at the front of the room. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? CEO Troke, could you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mayor, all of council is present and accounted for.
Thank you. CEO, you have provided us with a proposed agenda. Do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Are there any further additions or deletions to the agenda? Councillor Gerard.
Your worship, if it's okay with the rest of the council, the in camera, could I add just a small short session about the Temple Point fire?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And you're going to be speaking to that?
Yes.
Certainly. All right, so we have one addition, and that is to the in camera, and it will be joint fire. Are there any further additions or deletions to the agenda? None. I could have a motion, please. Thank you. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Huntley. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. You've been provided with minutes of the January 25th, 2021 council meeting, and they have been distributed for your review and approval. If there are changes, if there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and you will note that on page 4, item 3, the motion wording has already been highlighted in your package, and that will be corrected under business arising because a new motion must be made that amends that, so it can't just be done under the minutes. So we'll move on to the next set of minutes. Certainly, yes.
Under 6, under new business, after transportation project update, the recommendation to council, so that would be on our package, page 11 of 48. I read through that a number of times and I recall it, the recommendation being made, but I'm trying to piece it together and I'm not able to. So it talks about that under the ICIP Green Infrastructure Project, that there's going to be 943,851 over a 7-year period. Then it says, which the town of Kentville share is a multi-government funding agreement. The province is 1.179. The feds are 1.430.
Right.
And the council pre-approved 46,000.
Yes.
In the 2021-22 capital budget. And then Kentville share is 175 of the first year grant. So is that 46,672 something that we're going to do over the ensuing 7 years until we get to 170? I wasn't clear on it, and maybe it's just me.
Okay, no, not a problem. So we anticipate over the next 7 years that the town of Kentville will spend $943,851
Okay.
over a 7-year period.
Okay.
Next year, they've already committed to spending $175,000, of which $46,672 is our share of that.
Right.
So that's why we pre-committed this money.
Yes. Okay, that clarifies.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And if ever you're reading the minutes and something doesn't make sense, please do not hesitate because you know, it's easy enough to write them and think you're saying what's been said, but it's always best to clarify those. All right, and then our next set of minutes is from the January 27th, 2021 special council meeting. If there are no changes, they are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file as approved. Is there any problem with that set of minutes? Or not a problem, but any changes to that set of minutes? None? All right, moving on then. So our next piece of business is amendments to the motion for climate action plan. And on this one, because it is an amendment to change something that was previously adopted, you had to be served notice. And that's why you received the email on Friday detailing the changes. So you will recall that on December 14th, that we received a project update on regional climate action plan. And it came to council on the 25th of January. And at the time, I erroneously called it an FCM grant, when in fact, it is actually a Nova Scotia low carbon communities grant. So the motion would read that council moved to amend the name of the grant in the previously adopted motion at the January 25th, 2021 council meeting to pre-approve funding by changing the name of the grant to read Nova Scotia Low Carbon Communities Vice FCM Partners for Climate Protection Program. Someone could move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Huntley. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor York. It has been moved and seconded that council move to amend the name of the grant in the previously adopted motion at the January 25th, 2021 council meeting to pre-approve funding by changing the name of the grant to read Nova Scotia Low Carbon Communities Vice FCM Partners for Climate Protection Program. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to amend the name of the grant in a previously adopted motion at the January 25th, 2021 council meeting to pre-approve funding by changing the name of the grant to read Nova Scotia Low Carbon Communities Vice FCM Partners for Climate Protection Program. I'm looking at you, looking at me. We'll have the vote soon.
Yep. So if you can point your clickers at me in just a second, it's not quite ready yet. At me, yeah, the receiver is in my laptop.
All right,
You go to up there.
voting is now
Go
open.
for it. I know you want to point it up there, but don't point it up there. Point it over here.
And you should get an okay once you've pressed.
There you go.
All right, voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Sometimes you gotta go around the head.
Ricochet.
Got it.
Learning curve, yeah. Dan, he didn't think you'd have to put up with this abuse.
He's got good acoustics.
All right, our next piece of business is actually second reading of the bylaw revision for the noise bylaw. So as you know, we had our noise bylaw go through, and this is actually an amendment to the bylaw. So first reading of the noise bylaw revision was approved at the January 25th, 2021 council meeting. And after consideration of the resolution, council is prepared to move forward with second reading. So the motion is that council approve the suggested changes to the noise bylaw as presented and provide second reading. If someone could move that, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Huntley. I've got you for the second. So it has been moved and seconded that council approve the suggested changes to the noise bylaw as presented and provide second reading. Is there any discussion on this matter? No discussion. If you're ready for the question is on adoption of the motion to approve the suggested change to the noise bylaw as presented and provide second reading. And our voting is now open.
See how fast that was?
That was good. That was good. Now, if we can just press this fast. And voting is now closed. And the motion is carried.
Once it closes,
Okay.
You can't change, you can't change it.
Clicker didn't work.
Motion is carried. All right, our next piece of business arising is with regards to the Catalyst Consulting request. And we had a request from staff to hold a public participation meeting at the 11th of January, 2021 CAC meeting. And it was tabled on the advice of our solicitor at the January 25th council meeting. The consulting firm has withdrawn their original application, so there is no longer a question for debate on this matter because there is no need for a public participation meeting without this request from the applicant. So however, the motion was moved by Councillor Huntley and seconded by Councillor Gerard. If the members of council are satisfied, we can allow this motion to die on the floor by postponing it indefinitely. So the motion would read that council postpone indefinitely the request to conduct a public participation meeting. And the motion would still be done by Councillor Huntley and Councillor Gerard if you're both satisfied with this matter. So it has been moved and seconded that council postpone indefinitely the request to conduct a public participation meeting. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is to postpone indefinitely the request to conduct a public participation meeting. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we have several recommendations arising from the CAC meeting on February the 8th, and they will be presented and moved by Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Council Advisory Committee recommendation to council concerning the sundry write-offs. At the February 8th, 2021 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Kroll presented her report from the town collection officer outlining the need to write off receivable accounts in the amount of $8,658.90. So Council Advisory recommends, and I move that council approve to write off the sundry receivable account as attached in the amount of $8,658.90.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the write-off of the sundry receivable account as attached in the amount of $8,658.90. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is to recommend or is to approve the write-off of the sundry receivable account as attached in the amount of $8,658.90. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. Council Advisory Committee recommendation to council concerning tax exemptions. At the February 8th, 2021 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Kroll presented her report reviewing the low income tax exemption policy. Council Advisory Committee recommends, and I move that council approve the resolution for low income tax exemption for the 21-22 year as follows. Exemption amount $257 to $546. The income ceiling is $27,971, and the deadline for applications will be June the 30th, 2021.
The seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the resolution for low income tax exemption for the 2021-2022 year as detailed. Exemption amount is between $257 to $546. The income ceiling is $27,971. The deadline for application is the 30th of June, 2021. Is there any discussion on this matter? With no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is to approve the resolution for low income tax exemption for 2021-2022 year as detailed. Exemption amount is $257 to $546. Income ceiling is $27,971, and the deadline for applications is June 30th, 2021. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried unanimously.
Final council advisory committee recommendation to council concerns the taxi bylaw. At the February 8th, 2021 meeting of council advisory committee, CAO Troke reviewed the staff report outlining the need to revise taxi registration charges and other administration fees through the Kentville Police Service. The council advisory committee recommends, and I move, that council give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Gerard, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw. Is there any discussion on this matter? Now, just for the, I guess, knowledge of our new members of council, is that anytime we have a bylaw, whether it's amended or completely rewritten, once it is approved, it will be assigned a new number, and the old one will automatically be withdrawn from our books. So this is just a typical activity. So you will typically see numbers assigned to them, and Jennifer will do that once we've given second reading and the bylaw is approved. It will be assigned a number, but until that time, no activity will be done. So if there's no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council give first reading to the amended taxi bylaw. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. All right, we will now move on to our councillor reports, and we'll start with Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. Last council was January 25th, last CAC was January the 8th. January the 20th, I attended Valley Waste. Lots of budget discussions going on at Valley Waste, and I did miss a meeting this week, which I apologize and I regret, but their budget is still not finalized, or as of January 20th date, it wasn't finalized. As soon as I get it, I'll bring it in and give it to CAO Trope, and he can just disperse it as he sees fit. January 29th, Kentville Police Commission. The Police Commission sent a letter, and I will try to be as brief as possible on this, to Minister Fury. When the COVID restrictions happened, they shut down what they call cells. Cells are at the basement of the DOJ building. When a prisoner is going to court, they're taken from the jail that we keep them at at the RCMP station to cells. The sheriff works the DOJ system. So if they need to call a lawyer, the sheriff would take them, get them a room, set them up. If they needed to fill out paperwork, again, the sheriff. When the restrictions came in, they said cells are closed. we aren't the only municipality having trouble with this. So there have been days where officers spend an entire day going from Kentville to the RCMP station to facilitate a meeting with a lawyer, filling out paperwork, allowing a phone call, that type of thing. Chief Chiquetto, I believe, sent a letter. We sent a letter. Truro has sent a letter. I believe Bridgewater has. So hopefully they can get, this is costing a fair amount of money, probably into the tens of thousands so far. We also talked about parking spaces, line painting. The Carroll Police Committee, there was, the chief said there was money in the budget to do online webinars for the governance side of things. You buy 11, you get 12 free. So we've done that this year. The first one was on governance oversight, which I didn't attend, but I listened to while I was plowing. The budget for Kemper Police is at 75%. And let's see, I did add one other thing. Joint fire. And again, joint fire, we had a very brief meeting as Deputy Mayor knows, and that's still budget and it still hasn't come to us because we haven't got our budget. That's my report. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Between January 26th and February 1st, I attended all my committee meetings except for one, which we haven't had yet. Diversity, accessibility, King's Transit. They were all very informative. King's Transit was board orientation and learning about what King's Transit is about, who's their client, so we can be able to put our heads together and help where we can. Accessibility meeting, it was a short meeting that we attended, but we discussed the draft of the accessibility plan, and that's moving forward. With the diversity meeting, we also had, along with the action plan update, we had guest speakers of Steve Johnson, who talked about as a school liaison, and Craig Gibson, Black History Matters presentation. It was wonderful. So that was the base of the whole evening. And then along with that, between financial management meetings and why hire a person with disabilities, diversity, Light for Learning introduction, coastal climate meeting. I'm learning as I go. And the last piece was I signed up for the Canadian Blood Services so I can help with Kenville's blood drive to have a rep there when they're here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, thank you. Okay, last council meeting attended was January 25th. And the last advisory meeting was February the 8th. On December 22nd, I didn't report this one, but I attended the special council meeting on CAO recruitment. January 27th, we had a special council meeting. Accessibility Advisory Committee was February 9th, and I'll speak about that in a minute. February 11th was an Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition meeting, and I'll give a report on that. February 12th, I had some discussions with citizens, one concerning a snowbank crosswalk issue on Mill Run, and one concerning water runoff issue on Belcher Street. And those were reported to the engineering, our engineer director. Town of Kentville events, February 13th, I dropped into the fire and ice sledding party at Memorial Park. Very impressed with the turnout there. The organization was top notch and everyone was having fun, and gee, there were so many people sledding. It was amazing. To say it was a success does not do it justice. It was a fantastic event. And of course, we've had perfect weather for these events. February 15th, I went over to the Fire and Ice Family Snow Play Day at Oakdean Park. And my first thought was, this is the vision that we had for this park. It was packed. It was, again, another amazing event. Lots of families, they were sledding, they had some, there was a lot of people on the playground. There was a play box session and there were lots of people over there using the parachute and doing activities like that. There were people skating on the pond and there were people snowshoeing. So it truly was the vision that we had for Oakland Park coming to life right there at that event. So really fantastic event, I believe, by KBC and Town of Kentville. So very successful. The accessibility committee meeting, Director Betty Field filled in the group on the application for the federal grant and how if we are successful with that application, it will move the work of this accessibility project ahead much faster. The committee members were given a copy of the accessibility plan being done up by Houdini to read and to give our feedback on. And there was also discussion on how important it will be to come up with an education plan to ensure the success of this project. There's going to have to be a big education push in that area. The Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition meeting, the coalition isn't on target with their budget. We went over the work plan for this year, and I was happy to note that the kiosks for Kentville will be completed this year. And of course, all the work plans are barring any big weather events, like major storms that bring down big trees and things like that need to be done, but we should see our kiosks on the trail. We looked at registration numbers for the Trans-Canada Trail, and I was pleased to note that the town of Kentville is registered with the Trans-Canada Trail. This means that we can now access funds from the Trans-Canada Trail organization for work on our section of the trail, which is good. The Nova Scotia Trails Conference for All will be held from September 15th to 19th. As the name suggests, this conference will focus on accessibility for trails. More information can be found on the Nova Scotia Trails website. And that's my report.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So last council meeting and CAC is noted, as Councillor Gerard noted, Feb 11th, we have budget discussions with Joint Fire. February the 17th, I attended Investment Advisory Committee where we had a report from our IA on the perpetual fund as of January 2021, and our weighted yield was 1.26%, which is against the balanced income CAD market at a negative 0.86. So doing relatively well year over year. Market value is just north of 14 million. The investment policy statement revisions were approved by council and forwarded to the minister for final approval. Those were sent in on January the 29th and hoping to receive a positive response back from the minister on those revisions. Just a couple of items I wanted to mention about our meeting. For the 2021 year, we have roughly about 1.5 million coming due. So it's really great timing that we've made these revisions. Hopefully that they'll be approved by the minister, the IBS revisions, such that we can make that our investment advisory can make some changes in the portfolio. He certainly wants to take his time with making such changes. Preservation of capital will be very important on a go-forward basis. So at our next IC meeting, we should have a more definitive approach and recommendations from him as to what the investment portfolio will look like for the ensuing year. To dovetail on Councillor Maxwell's comments about the fire and ice weekend, did the Trail of Love, the Forge, the kissing booth. I didn't have an animal with me, but I just went over. Friday evening was the music and shopping. Anyway, it was a chop drawer event. It was really, really great and really great partnership with KBC and the town of Kentville. They really outdid themselves. And I know there were community members as well that took part in this and that had a lot of the great ideas. January the 21st, I had lunch with Her Worship, and January 27th was an in-camera meeting where we discussed some legal issues, and that is my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor York.
So in addition to the council meetings, I also attended Police Commission, KCA PTA, the the LBANS, the Library Boards Association of Nova Scotia. And it was actually their AGM and not the ABRL AGM that I attended. I was really excited about the ABRL, I guess, and mistyped the name. But I also attended my meetings with the ABRL as well. With the Police Commission, I was able to attend some of the webinars that Councillor Gerard had alluded to earlier. They were of note. They were the evaluation, or sorry, the effective collaboration and evaluation with police leadership. So the big takeaways there were the evaluation of and the common pitfalls of police governance board. So there was a lot of information there, and some things that we could probably take forward with our own police board. I also did a defense, security, and justice webinar, part of the community series. It was about forensics and the leading trends within those for investigations and investigators. Some of the stuff was a bit out of scope for perhaps the town of Kentville, but it was interesting nonetheless. So that was all very interesting and eye-opening. At the KCA PTA meeting, we discussed the success of their recent fundraisers and the continued success of the school cafeteria program. And we're planning on how to move the traditional spring fling into a COVID-friendly spring fling. So a lot of ideas there, but it's looking more and more like it's going to be a family-friendly outdoor event, possibly at the Gorge. With the help of the rec department, Julia Stevenson was there and was more than helpful in helping us plan those very, very early stages. The cafeteria is also going to be taking part in Burger Wars this year. So they are in a position where they're able to give back to the community in the form of the Burger Wars competition. So that's a very exciting day for them. At the LBANS, not the AVRL, the LBANS AGM, they were discussing just what their future is going to be holding, and they're going to have some big conversations around that, I think, in the upcoming future. So looking forward to seeing what happens there. And at the AVRL board meeting, we were talking about some more grants and training opportunities for staff and board members, the grand opening of the Kingston branch of the AVRL, and the funding models for the libraries. And that's what I've been up to.
All right, sounds good. Councillor Xavier.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on the 25th of January, I attended the last council meeting. The 8th, we had CAC of February. February 17th, I attended the Investment Advisory Committee, and Deputy Mayor Savage highlighted the events from that. On the 27th and 29th, I took part of a 2-day training session with finance management. And on the 27th, we had an in-camera meeting with legal issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So for my report, I've been to the usual meetings. The Valley Region REAP, so that's Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. We met for a check-in prior to the next meeting, and then had a VREN LOC, so Liaison and Oversight Committee with the board chair to discuss our next meeting plans. Council meeting preparations with the new CAO and the interim CEO on the 25th of January. And then REAP started in full swing with the launch from MIT. And so we had several presentations from the university describing the work ahead and the assignments that we have to have completed before April. The Valley Rent Task Force, which is something that started due to the COVID, and it's shifted a couple times as COVID has shifted, and we are now looking at regional economic, and I'm on the regional economic task force, and the big thing here is the push to act and be local. And, you know, how do we describe local? Is local our town? Is local the valley? Is it the province? You know, so you really have to get your head wrapped around what local is and how you contribute to it. And it's very important. So I'm going to put the old plug out there that if you're doing anything on Facebook, you know, the old hashtags, we are Kentville, local matters, those are important hashtags because they they highlight the events that we're having here. And when you look at an event like Fire and Ice, where it was a collaboration between our Kentville business community and Town of Kentville staff, it was an incredible success, but it was also an incredible opportunity to overcome the challenges of COVID, overcome the challenges of winter. You may recall last year in February, our winter carnival was planned for an entire weekend of winter sports. And then we had that big thaw, and Miners March became a swimming pool instead of an ice skating pond. So, you know, this was one of those events where it didn't matter what the weather did, we had it nailed. And at the end of the day, local matters. So, so it's very important that we do these things. Again, another Valley Ren board meeting. NSFM mayors. So as you know, the province is doing a housing commission. The NSFM, so that's us, our representation was left off of this housing commission. And so the NSF board has been doing a concerted effort to kind of get us in there. And at the end of the day, they told us that that we could attend the pregame party in the parking lot, but we weren't invited to the game. So that's the story there, but we hope that we will be able to contribute because, as you well know, anything that happens in housing in Nova Scotia ends up at the municipal level. So it's one of those important things to keep your eye on that ball. Municipal Finance Corp had a board meeting, and of course it was our quarterly meeting, and we were reviewing funding. And as you will recall, there was funding available to municipalities with COVID, and we had a few communities in Nova Scotia take up that extra funding. But for the lion's share, most municipalities made up quite well with receiving their tax funding. Again, regional task force, bi-weekly updates. The big thing that's happening now is as we come down from one fiscal, we're starting up another fiscal. And what that means is that there's new programs coming, new grants and new funding. So it's very important, again, I'll say, to keep your eye on the ball and see what those funding opportunities are. And I will be pushing them out to you so that you can promulgate them and get them to the people who need to know more about them. NSBI in particular, back in April, they started a plan where you could, if you went digital, you could get up to $10,000, 50% of funding back in a grant. So there is another like plan coming at the beginning of April again this year. So when that comes forward, I'll be sure to send it out and make sure that that you let people know. This is particularly for small business and medium-sized business. MIT REAP, again, we held a virtual coffee break with Deputy Minister Bernie Miller and talking about entrepreneurship in Nova Scotia. So I seem to talk an awful lot about economic development, but entrepreneurship in Nova Scotia really is the engine that our economic engine, because if you look around, I mean, a small town the size of Kentville, how many entrepreneurs we have and how much of our business is actually coming from small business. And, you know, even when you look at, you know, I'll say the home hardwares or the independent stores, those are still owned by local folks. So they're still in entrepreneurship mode. And, you know, it always gives me great pride to be able to sit there and to talk about that. Fire and Ice weekend, Saturday in downtown Kentville, checking out the shopping and a few little items at Patty's Pub that were new on the menu. Conference attended, NSFM board meeting. We had orientation for new members, and as well I attended the NSFM webinar presentation on grants and funding, which is available to municipalities from the provincial government. And I sent that around to you as a PowerPoint. I had lunch with the deputy mayor, how to use Canvas, which is the program that we're using for MIT REAP. And I also had the pleasure and honor of making a presentation to the Royal Canadian Air Force recruit class that is currently going on at Camp Aldershot. So we typically think of Aldershot as being very Army centric, but they are doing Air Force recruit training up there. And there was a class of, I'm going to say about 30 of them. And I'm going to say, wow, they were young. And that is my report. So we've received all of the reports from councillor and mayors. If I could have a motion to accept the councillor and mayor's reports as presented, please. Councillor York, thank you. Councillor Zabian, I've got you for the second. It has been moved and seconded that councillor and mayor reports be accepted as presented. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. We have no new business this evening. We have no correspondence, and we have no public comments. However, we do have confidential business which must be conducted in a closed session. So we require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda items. We will not be returning to Facebook Live for the adjournment. So if I could have a motion, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Zabian for the second. It has been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. And the time is 6:43. Wow. Oh, I'm going gas tonight.
Wow.
All right, Jason, you can close this down. Thank you.